What music has survived well from the 1960s? I thought it might be interesting to look at what songs from the 1960s have remained very popular even in the age of streaming. So I asked ChatGPT to provide me with a list of all the number one hits on either the US chart or the British chart for the years 1961 to 1970. I then checked on Spotify to find out how many times these songs had been streamed. A couple of notes about this information. First of all, I'm relying on ChatGPT to get this right. If I were to have to go back and check its response, I might as well do it all myself from scratch, but that's way too much work. Secondly, some of these songs have more than one version. Where that was the case, I tried to pick the version with the greatest number of streams. It's possible that I got that wrong occasionally. Some of these songs were double A-side singles, and in that case I treated each song individually. Finally, it's entirely possible, indeed likely, that there are many songs from this era that never reach number one, but nevertheless have more streams than at least some of the songs on this list. So there are clearly some limitations to this exercise. Nevertheless, I think it's fun to have a go. ChatGPT generated 213 songs that were number one either in the UK, the USA, or both during those years. I removed duplicates. But surprisingly, there was not a lot of overlap between the two lists. 97 were number one on the US chart alone, and 116 on the British chart alone. I then had to decide what constituted a song that was still popular in the streaming era, so I needed a cutoff number. I opted for at least 100 million streams. That may be somewhat arbitrary, but I had to pick something. For comparison with the most popular songs from the streaming era, Lewis Capaldi's Someone You Loved has about 3.4 billion streams. Ed Sheeran's Shape of You has about 3.9 billion streams. And The Weeknd's Blinding Lights, the most streamed song, has about 4.2 billion streams. In all, 82 songs have over 2 billion streams. Now, none of the songs on this list from the 60s comes even close to that, so 100 million is the benchmark I chose. Of the 213 songs on this list, 43 from the US chart and 25 from the UK chart qualified as having at least 100 million streams. So, proportionately, a larger number from the US chart, about 44%, made the cut compared with the British chart, about 22%. Note that this doesn't mean US artists versus UK artists. There were many UK songs on the US chart that weren't on the UK chart, and vice versa. So overall, 68 songs made the cut, around 32%. Perhaps not at all surprisingly, the Beatles were the most represented by far, with 16 songs, which is about 24% of the 68 songs. So almost a quarter of the songs were by the Beatles. The Rolling Stones had 5, and the Supremes had 4. Only one Elvis song made the cut, but this may be because his biggest hits predate 1961. I thought it might also be worth looking at the songs that have proved least popular during the streaming era, with less than, say, 10 million streams. 23 songs from the US chart and 41 from the UK chart met this criterion. A total of 64 songs, or about 30%. Not very different from the 32% that scored 100 million or above. So about a third made the 100 million cut, about another third made less than 10 million streams, with the remaining third somewhere in the middle. So what were the top 10 songs that made the cut? Coming in at number 10, Louis Armstrong, What a Wonderful World, with 573 million or so streams. Coming in at number 9, Simon and Garfunkel, The Sound of Silence, with 575 million or so streams. At number 8, The Beatles with Hey Jude, around 580 million streams. At number 7, Aretha Franklin with Respect, at about 602 million streams. Number 6, The Beatles with Let It Be, and 678 million streams. At number 5, the Rolling Stones, I Can't Get No Satisfaction, with 715 million streams. At number 4, Otis Redding, Sitting on the Dock of the Bay, with 747 million streams. At number 3, the Jackson 5, I Want You Back, with 904 million streams. Number 2, The Animals, The House of the Rising Sun, with 958 million. And at number 1, the only song to actually pass the 1 billion mark, the Rolling Stones' Paint It Black. I must admit that rather surprised me. Indeed, the top 2 surprised me. I wouldn't have picked those if you'd asked me. So there we are. Again, bear in mind that there may be errors or omissions here. Also, there may well be other songs from this era that have more streams than these. They may have been missed, or they may not have made it to number 1. What do you make of this list? Are there any surprises there for you? Are you aware of any obvious errors or omissions? Please leave your thoughts in the comments.